Good evening and welcome to the regular board meeting of the Board of Directors of the Bellevue School District. At this time, we will do roll call.
Jay Norris.
Seema Sarafan,
Carolyn Watson.
Sorry about that. Kelly Aramaki, Superintendent.
okay, thank you. This time, I believe our Executive Director and Chief of Staff will introduce our student.
I would be happy to do that and honored to do that. This evening, we have the pleasure of hearing from Brianna Whiting to my left here. Brianna is a senior at Bellevue High School, so in the midst of college applications in that exciting time. And I'd ask Brianna to come up forward and lead us in the pledge.
Good afternoon. To open this meeting, please join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now I would like to lead the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are on the indigenous land of the Coast Salish peoples who have reserved treaty rights to this land, specifically the Duwamish and Snoqualmie tribes. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived and continue to live here since time immemorial. We reflect on the historic context that brings us to reside on this land and accept responsibility to interrupt erasure. We commit to an ongoing partnership with the Snoqualmie tribe as we listen to, learn from, and lead with their guidance. Thank you for joining me for this opening. To introduce myself, I've been a senior class officer throughout all 4 years of my high school, and it's been one of the best experiences of my life. My older brother was also heavily involved with Bellevue leadership, so I've been going to Bellevue High School assemblies since I was in elementary school. I've known I've wanted to do leadership ever since I've heard our drum and passionate cheers from the audience filling the gym with blue and gold pride. Leading our student body has allowed me to unite our diverse community and uphold our cherished traditions, which define us as one of the most spirited schools around. One of my all-time favorite traditions is happening as we speak, the annual homecoming competitions. This year's overarching theme is the Met Gala, which with each class office choosing a sub-theme. The seniors embraced camp, pure eccentricity with tackiness. The juniors went with old Hollywood, the sophomores adopted superheroes, and the freshmen immersed themselves in Greek mythology. Now, here's where the true excitement kicks in. Each class office competes in 6 thrilling challenges: class participation in Spirit Week, designing and selling t-shirts, painting wooden boards for our homecoming parade floats, decorating our flex wing, and choreographing a dance, as well as filming a video to show at the homecoming assembly. Everything must be centered around their respective sub-theme. In our case, as senior class officers, we've poured countless hours into decking everything out with disco balls, flamingos, palm trees, and hot pink, all in the pursuit of the class of 2024 taking the top spot. It's been an absolute blast to partake in this tradition one last time, and I'm so excited to perform our assembly dance, featuring a mashup of Paparazzi by Lady Gaga and riding our float in the parade tomorrow. These competitions have brought our class together every single year due to the high student participation. We take it seriously and are positive we will hear seniors announce for first place at halftime of the homecoming football game. Thank you so much for giving me time to speak, and have a great rest of your meeting.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Brianna. As mentioned before too, you're welcome to stay for any part of the meeting that remains workable for you, or leave however it works for you. Okay, we move now to acknowledgements. October is Indigenous Peoples Month. It is Disability History Month and National Disability Employment Awareness Month. Hispanic Heritage Month, which runs from September 15th through October 15th. It is Learning Disabilities Awareness Month, Czech Heritage Month, National Principles Month, Dyslexia Awareness Month, Italian American Heritage and Culture Month, Polish American Heritage Month, Filipino American Heritage History Month, and October 2nd was National Custodians Day, and October 4th was the International Walk to School Day. So we celebrate all of these as a community. At this time, I ask for a second to my motion to approve tonight's agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, the motion carries. Now we go to the consent agenda, and I ask for a second to my motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approving tonight's consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, the motion carries. We now go to item 3, which is the superintendent update. And we also note that our roll call includes Director Christine Chu.
All right, great. Thank you, everybody. Hi, let's go ahead and go to my first slide. A few celebrations that I want to share today, and then I'll end with just a couple of updates on a couple of operational things. But as you can see here, this is a picture of the Bellevue High School 100 anniversary celebration from this past Saturday. And it was just an extraordinary celebration, not only of Bellevue High School and its 100 years, but of the history of Bellevue in general. And so I just want to say, I mean, if you look at this picture, these incredible students who participated, and a crowd full of former students, alumni, family members, staff. It was a great celebration. The school looked beautiful. In front of the building, there was a 1923 Model T, Ford Model T, right next to a 2023 electric Ford Mustang, which was very cool. The Mustang doesn't fly, so we thought cars would fly by now. But at this, I mean, in any case, it was really extraordinary to see, even just symbolically through kind of the automobiles, kind of the progress that's been made. But it was a great celebration. And I just a shout out to Brianna, who just spoke a little bit ago, who did just was one of the many students who helped set up the school, decorate, make things beautiful, get the sound set up in the gym. And so a big thanks to all the kids who participated in that. Next slide. Just a couple more pictures from the Bellevue High School celebration. In the bottom left corner are a picture of our parent volunteers. It is, I mean, parents really do so much to help our schools run, to bring amazing events to our kids and to our communities. And those 6 parents right there, they have worked for the past year or more just to prepare an amazing event. They helped coordinate, get people invited, plan for the event. And so we're just thankful for the parents as well, and to the staff who put it together. I'll just mention the top right corner. Part of the celebration was a celebration of the Japanese American students who went through Bellevue High School, particularly those who didn't get to graduate because of World War II and the internment. And so during kind of a commemoration time up in the library after the main event, they presented me with a plaque that shows all of the Japanese American students who were evacuated or sent to internment camps and weren't able to graduate. And so if you look really closely, class of 1943, you can see my great aunt Eva Aramaki is one of them. And so I have a copy of her transcript that shows her grades up through her junior year, first semester, and then she was sent to the Tule Lake internment camp with my family. So it was an incredible honoring of the Japanese American community as well. And so I'm thankful to the staff who really pushed to include kind of the whole story of Bellevue in the celebration, and it was very meaningful for me personally. Next slide. So I did preview this with Dr. Anderson, the principal at Bellevue High School, so he shouldn't be too surprised. But we can watch it and then I'll talk. Yeah, it's awesome. So I just a shout out to all of our principals and assistant principals. This is National Principals Month, and that was Dr. Anderson performing at the 100th celebration with the jazz band, and it was so awesome to see him performing and just being with the kids, and the kids seemed to really enjoy that. And so just a big shout out to Dr. Vic Anderson, but to all of our principals and assistant principals who lead in our schools. They just do remarkable work. I mean, they do all of the hard work. It's not a very easy job, and then they find ways to make community fun. So thank you to the leaders in our schools. Next slide. And related to that, so we talked about this the last time, but our 6 high schools were noted in the U.S. News and World Report's best high schools list. All 6 of them are in the top 30 in the state. So top 4% in the state, top 7% in the country. And with that designation, they're considered the best in the nation, all 6 of our high schools. And so we asked our high school principals to come here because we have a presentation of banners for each of the schools. And so if Janine wants to help me out with this, actually, and then Mr. Harrison, will you grab, there's the banner right behind you. So we'd love to just kind of show the board and the community this banner, which basically looks like what's on the screen. But we are going to hang this at each of the schools. We're going to give one to each of the principals today. But I'd love to have the 6 principals, unless Mr. Cochran is not here. Do I not see him? Okay, so I'd love to have the 6 principals come on up. And then we'll go ahead and take a photo, but we want to congratulate you on your leadership and on the excellence of your schools. All right, there's always so much to celebrate, and it's good for us to do so. The last thing I'll just share, I'm just going to share a couple of topics that are, I think, of particular interest to the community. And so the first one is just a quick update on transportation. So yesterday, we have about 4 routes that were impacted by not having enough bus drivers. And so I had mentioned this before, but we are about still 12 drivers short of what we would be comfortable with, which helps to cover substitutes when our drivers are sick. And so we are facing quite a challenge when illness goes through our transportation ranks, which is what's been happening. And so I just want to just acknowledge to the community, I know how hard it is and what an inconvenience it is for us to have to send out a notice the night before to say that we don't have enough bus drivers to bring our kids to and from school. And so I want to acknowledge that. And I wanted to talk about how we are doing everything we can to hire and recruit more drivers every single day. When we do have to cut a route, we are paying particular attention to buffer our higher poverty neighborhoods. So we take that into consideration. And the other thing that we're trying to do is spread out the impact. And so it's not the same routes that are impacted time after time. So we are doing that. But what I will say is we cannot guarantee that people won't be impacted at some point this year. This is part of a broader challenge that our region is facing around affordable housing, around being able to recruit people into positions. And so we are not immune from that. This is happening in other districts, and it certainly is happening here. But to mitigate that, what I'll just mention is in working with our transportation director and with our deputy superintendent, Melissa DeVita, something that we are planning to do is to host a transportation family forum sometime in 2024. So we aren't able to do it right away, but we are planning during this school year to bring families together to meet with us, with the city of Bellevue and Metro King County, just to talk about ways that we can improve transportation for our K-12 students, our P-12 students, how we can improve transportation for them here in the city of Bellevue. So we know that there are some other issues around routes and around improving transportation using Metro and different ways that we can be more efficient in getting to schools, particularly those that draw from the entire city. And so we will plan for doing something with families so we can hear kind of what the concerns are and the ways that we can improve. So more information on that, but I wanted the community to know that this is something that we are working on. And then the last comment is around middle school consolidation. Last board meeting, we had a study session right after. The school board and I worked together to solidify a community engagement process, timeline, and a communication plan. I'll be sending out a letter in the near future that kind of captures kind of the big idea of what's happening with potential middle school consolidation and our enrollment challenges. So pay attention for that to come out soon. October 12th, which is a week from today, we will communicate the dates for community engagement. So that will come out in our news and events next Thursday. And then 2 Thursdays from that, October 26th, is when we plan to have our 2 demographer reports put up on the website. And so keep an eye out for that as well. We've created an email address, msconsolidation@bsd405.org, which is on our website. So if you go to the website, you'll see that email address. So if you have any questions or comments or ideas or suggestions related to middle school consolidation study, we'll have a designated email address that you can write to. So that is the end of my report.
Well, you did forget to mention, and there's no video of you playing piano. So those of us who were there saw a very talented Dr. Aramaki on the piano. So I think we all are just going to clap for you now, because I thought that was very brave.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we are going to move now to public comment. And before I start with the just words about public comment, can I ask our executive director if we have any people who've registered? Okay. Okay, we have 4 people.
Seema,
Right.
before we move all the way on,
Yeah.
is there any space for a quick question on the report?
On the superintendent update?
Yeah.
Sure, why don't we take that? We don't have time for, unless we want to pull from director discussion, but if you just have a quick question.
Quick question. Last year, we were not as impacted as most districts on the bus driver issues. And this year, obviously, we are quite impacted. I wanted to know, is there anything that has changed in our relationship with our drivers, with our pay in comparison to other districts, or is there any other information that's influencing that beyond just the general market? And how are we addressing that?
Yeah, good question. I can see I've got 2 people queued up to say something. So Melissa, you want to go first, and then maybe Jeff can chime in real quick.
Yeah. Oh, now it's working. Thank you. Thank you for that question, board. There hasn't been really any change with our relationship with our drivers. In fact, it is better than it has been, and it is continuing to improve. It's the general market. We have been recruiting heavily all summer, and we will continue to recruit. year-round, basically. So our discussions with our transportation department is that this is now a year-round recruiting effort, not just in the summer for the fall, so that we continually have a backlog of potential drivers and those in training. It is just really tough to find people right now, and the other areas that we struggle in are nutrition services and mechanics, and I believe paras, and Jeff may mention a few others, but we are struggling with finding people in some of these positions, and partially because people don't live in this area with the housing costs and things here. So we just don't have that much workforce housing right now.
Thank you. I would add one additional piece, and we are actually at a demographic window of retirement age that started hitting us about 12 months ago and will hit us probably for another 18 months, where it's disproportionately high number of drivers are eligible for retirement compared to the entire body. So that hit. So many of these vacancies are due to retirement.
Thank you. All right, so it sounds like we have 4 people for public comment, and I will go ahead and read our public comment advisory. We also ask you to look online for the complete public comment guidelines. This is the time during our meetings when we receive public comment. The details about public comment and our expectations are on our agenda, and they are displayed right now on the screen. Please remember that you can also communicate with us, the board, by email or voicemail. We are grateful as the board to receive public comment, and we appreciate the thoughtful input of our community. Because of the limitations of our board calendar, public comment is limited to 20 minutes, and we limit each remark to not more than 2 minutes. We will listen carefully to all your comments, but we generally do not respond. We expect speakers to engage in a civil manner and not engage in any form of communication that's identified as unacceptable. That includes slander and libel, invasion of privacy, obscenities, and harassment, intimidation, bullying, or discrimination. We also can't accept public comment on pending investigations involving student discipline, allegations of employee misconduct, and allegations of discrimination or harassment. And that's in order to preserve our ability to hear appeals. So again, thank you, and know that while we'll be listening to all comments intently, we generally don't respond to comments in this setting. So Ms. Nimela, who's our first public commenter tonight?
I'll speak loudly. The first speaker, we've got 4 speakers all here this evening in person. And the first speaker is Zoe Shea.
Great, thank you.
Hello, it is great to see you all again. For those of you who don't know, my name is Zoe Shea, and I am a member of Team 2412, the Robototes. And this is my friend, Patience Irwin, who is on Team 16750, the Technototes, and Team 2412, both based out of Sammamish High School. Patience and I came to thank you for your continuous support of both our robotics program at our school and the continued support for robotics programs in this district. Because of your support, we have been able to begin the process of setting up a STEMnasium in the old Preston Dussel gym, along with the help of the other Bellevue teams, and as well as being able to attend the Student Association for STEM Advocacy Conference in Washington, D.C. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Patience, are you? Okay, great.
Hello, it is great to see all of you again. My name is Patience Irwin. I'm going to be talking about the future plans for the Robototes and the Technototes, which are both the robotics teams out of Sammamish High School. For the Technototes, our competition season has just started. This next weekend, we will be attending Week 0 competition for teams that we will be actually hosting. We'll be helping host a Week 0 competition for newer teams in FTC. As for the Robototes, we are still in our RF season, but that does not stop us from competing hosting competitions, and even still helping our community. We are currently running a camp for, I believe it's elementary school and maybe middle schoolers at the Puesta. In this next weekend, October 14th and 15th, we will be hosting our third ever competition, off-season competition, 40 Charged. We want to hold an open invitation to all of you out there to come and check out what we do on Sunday, on the Sunday. And our advocacy team is currently planning to host an online advocacy conference sometime in the next year. I wanted to thank everyone for their everlasting support for our team. Have a great rest of your guys' day.
Thank you very much.
Hello. Hello. My name Alex Zimmerman, and I want to speak about something what is, I think, absolutely critical to your business. Yeah, it's a bad business what as we have for a long time right now. And I explain to you where is the problem. You have 2,000 employees. Most employees is professional teacher with good experience and totally educated. And problem what is we have right now, what is I come to this place for many time, I never see teacher here bring something idea. 2,000 teacher, 2,000 employee don't have one smart idea. Why? Why they don't have this? Why they so quiet? Why? Because you under what is I call democratic fascism mafia controlling. That's exactly what's happened. People cannot come. 2,000, no one have smart idea. I have my business, 100 people work for me, and I talk to my business people, you know what it means, to my employee. When you don't bring a bad or good idea, I'm not care about this. But as I want, what is you work with your head. Because when you work with your head, it's a more productive than everything. So when you have a 2,000 zombie, you know what it means? What is cannot come here, it don't talking about make school better, children better, everything better. It's not matter about you talking. 2,000 never come. Is this a big problem? They scared because you built a fascism government. Is this exactly happening? Is this exactly what is I talking for many years, 4,000 times everywhere? So right now I have a proposition. When they cannot do this, you're supposed to be appointed every meeting from different school, 3 teacher, minimum 3 teacher, supposed to become and talking what is make life better for school. Stand up, America. Thank you.
Thank you. And that, I believe, concludes our public comment. Do we have anyone else registered?
I'd like to check if it's okay with you, President
Sure.
Serafin,
Do
to
you have
see
somebody online?
if there's anybody online that would like to speak. George, if you could just keep your eye up, and anybody online would like to speak, if you could please raise your hand. Anybody raise their hand, George? That concludes our public comment.
Okay, thank you. I think we go now to our reports, and I understand we're going to have a report on CTE. Is that right?
While we're getting things ready for Jess Moyer, who's our new director of CTE, which we're thrilled about, I'll just make a quick comment about tonight. So tonight she's going to share some information in preparation to send a report that is required for the state. And so the purpose of this particular report is just to get some of the technical things that we have to get done in order for our CTE program to exist. But what we will plan to do is she's going to share some information based on questions that the board had shared on Monday, which will be great. But we're planning to do something a little bit bigger and celebratory of our programs in February during CTE month. So we'll have some of the information today, and then we'll share more. We're planning to do more in a report about the program in February during CTE month.
All right. Good evening, school board directors. Tonight's presentation is to provide information about the Bellevue School District Career and Technical Education Program and seek your approval of the CTE four-year plan, also known as the CTE district-wide plan, which is needed to receive Perkins Grant funding. The CTE department includes a number of talented and dedicated professionals, and this includes 5 central office staff members, 4 college and career advisors, 6 instructional assistants, and 62 certificated CTE middle and high school teachers. Next slide, please. This year, the communication plan was co-developed with the communications department to focus on updating the CTE webpage in a multi-language accessible format. Also, we will be featuring CTE classes, student work, and accomplishments in the BSD news and events and on social media. This plan is guided by the Communications Department analysis of website and social media usage by the community. Next slide. One question you posed about the report was the opportunities for apprenticeships in the CTE program. Although apprenticeships are a specific training program associated with the trade industry, and our building industries technology construction program is articulated with the Carpenters Union to provide students with a preferred interview for acceptance in their apprenticeship program. The district-wide report instead includes information about work-based learning, which is defined as activities that extend the classroom into the workplace. These are reported annually to OSBI and are specific to the course or program area. Many courses provide extensive work experience. For example, Bernie's Bouquets that provide a flower subscription service and is a student-run enterprise within the horticulture program at Interlake, and other activities such as internships and healthcare clinicals at nursing homes and Overlake Hospital. Next slide. The CTE district-wide report is compiled by the CTE advisory committees. This includes general advisory and specific program advisories. You asked about how the CTE program addresses the needs of the local job market. This is accomplished with the input of industry members on the advisory committees. Next slide. You also asked how we are addressing the disproportionality of enrollment in the CTE report, and you asked about student input in the four-year plan, and here are some examples. Although the OSBI report does not include student participation in compiling the district-wide plan, we do have plans to incorporate student voice in response to the disproportionality related to enrollment in CTE courses. Last month, we worked with HR to update the former curriculum developer position within the CTE department. Alyssa Palma is the new CTE instructional technology and program developer. Her job description includes collecting information from students and teachers in order to establish and maintain equal access to high-quality career and technical education courses for all students. Together, we have started planning for 2 areas of focus this year. This includes partnering with the computer science elementary developer and elementary computer science specialists to examine how dispositions and interests related to computer science are being developed in the elementary schools and how we can maintain their interest in middle and high school courses. We will visit and listen to elementary and middle school students to understand the factors to influence their decisions to take computer science courses. Additionally, on October 24th, 200 8th graders will be attending a Computer Science Career Discovery Day on Amazon's Seattle campus, and students will have the opportunity to meet employees with many different backgrounds and participate in a team challenge using an Ozobot, which is a mini robot that can be programmed using a color coding system. Another area of focus is to address the disproportionality in the enrollment of multilingual learners in CTE classes. We are partnering with the MLL department to learn how to support students in aligning their school experience with their post-secondary goals. This will include talking with MLL students about their goals and understanding the barriers to achieving them. Next slide. You also asked, how do we currently support students to navigate CTE programs so they can align their course registrations with their post-secondary goals. The Perkins Grant is used to support the compensation of our 4 college and career advisors, which are located in our comprehensive high schools. Fabian, Lisa, Jose, and Vanessa are integral members of their respective schools. They work with the counseling department to support students in accessing the information they need to make decisions about their post-secondary plans. This includes course registration, financial aid applications, and job opportunities within the community. Next slide. These opportunities are communicated through school-wide announcements, social media accounts, and informative school web pages. Next slide. You'll notice how many resources are available, including scholarship opportunities, job boards, CTE-specific information, running start and dual credit, and how to book a one-on-one meeting with these college and career advisors. This year, they will be tracking which students access these opportunities and consider how they might reach underserved populations. Next slide. Thank you for your continued support of the CTE program. At this time, I ask for your approval of the CTE 4-year plan, also known as the CTE district-wide plan.
Great, thank you. So thank you very much, and in particular for addressing many of the questions. So appreciate that. I think we're going to go ahead and take any comments or questions from board directors. And at the request of the superintendent, we're going to take any questions all together, and then we'll sort out how they'll get answered. So we'll maybe physically start on the other end and we'll come all the way down. Director Chu, do you want to start off any comment or question?
I would actually prefer not to start. Thank you. I'll just wait.
Okay. Director Aris?
Yeah, I have one question. I appreciate that you will be going to the middle school and elementary school to collect questions and thoughts and concerns around computer science from our students, which I think is great. I'm curious to know this. I don't know if this is a CTE or if it's our general program, but we used to, when Wilburton last year was a general ed program, that was our test pilot, I believe, for integrating computer science into the elementary. Is that part of the CTE or is that separate? If it's, I wonder if we could tap into the staff and the students who were part of that to see how that impacted them and what they thought of, because you could ask questions to the kids, but if they have no clue what you're asking or how that really applies to them, it won't really matter too much. So it would be great if we elicit answers from kids who have a little more experience and staff who were part of that program.
Okay, Director Chu?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I was taking a minute because I didn't hear in the 2 significant questions I asked on Monday addressed, and I was trying to see if I had missed them in the slides. So the 2 things that I am wondering about are, we've heard with respect to our college programs, like, college credit in the high school type things, that kids don't get enough support in knowing when and how to sign up for the credit and how to kind of follow through on that. And I don't know if we have similar issues or not with the career and technical kids following through with the full opportunity for getting certification, pre-certification, for availing themselves of related internships. And so what I'd asked was, I'd like to understand better how we support kids proactively to get the most out of those courses, particularly for those kids who are hoping that that's going to be their primary stepping stone to career, but really for all kids, because it is a program that is rich for all of our students. So I'd love to know more about that. And then the second question that I had that you may have folded in, but it didn't pop obviously to me, and that was, what are your major investments right now? Like, and maybe you tried to say I'll answer that in February, I just started, but like, are there any significant changes or significant focus areas, as opposed to what are all the things you're doing right now to like, is there something that we're focused on to improve and direct in this space? And Is that something separate from or in concert with our larger annual and strategic type plans? So those are the things that didn't pop for me. Probably not quick answers, so maybe after. Thank you.
Vice President Shui?
Sure, I just wanted to reiterate my gratitude for the reports and for the answering of the questions that you're able to answer, because for those who are online or in the room that are not aware, we do have a Monday opportunity to ask questions that we know are about reports that will come up on Thursday. And so I really do appreciate your listening to those and answering as many of them as you could. So thank you. It's an outstanding world-class program, and thank you for heading it.
Director Watson?
Yeah, I've always really loved the CTE report, so I'm glad to see it continues with this attention to detail. That it's great, a great little printed book that comes out sometimes too. I'm wondering if we can post slides like this, because I wanted to flip back because I was taking notes and then the slides flipped away from me. And then, but then I had some questions. Are those career advisors, the career college and career, are they the ones that were always there, like even years ago in like a career center, like at Interlake? I remember going to one of those. Are those the same ones? Because I know that they used to have like big binders of opportunities and posters on the wall and all of that. And if that is true, that's one thing that we don't have at International and Big Picture, that kind of resource for kids to be able to find those things. Now, maybe it's in Naviance now and other things like that, but we didn't have that advisor. So I'm wondering, how do we extend it to those choice schools? And then I see that you're working on the gender thing, as many people are for like computer science, but what about things like Teaching Academy and whatever ones that were in the report where they have that orange where the 25% goal isn't met? I was just wondering, are we making similar efforts in those areas? Yeah.
Okay. And I have, I guess, a comment and a question. I kind of gave the comment earlier. I think it's very comprehensive and nicely done. And so thank you for that. And I have a question that I didn't ask on Monday because I think the transportation things that came up this week made me particularly curious about sort of an intersection already with many of these programs are situated, you know, within a school and can't be replicated at every school. So how do we handle that, I guess, as a baseline? And to what extent is that particularly exacerbated and maybe hitting some students harder with the transportation issues that seem to be getting pretty acute? So that's, I guess, comment and question. So Dr. Armaki, you can maybe sort out how you want to have them answered. Director Arias?
Yeah, one more question. I'm looking at our BSD website and just Google CTE, trying to figure out how accessible is it. And we do have a phenomenal CTE program. I don't know how much of our community understands how the diversity in programs we have. I look at our front page and I see we got advanced learning and we got a curriculum night and things of that nature. I wonder if there's a way we could put a link there so that we have our community kids access our CTE program and highlight that and celebrate them the same way we celebrate our advanced learning.
Okay, great. So maybe what we'll do is, how much time do we have, Director Seraphin?
We have a good 15 minutes.
Okay, great. So let me get it started, and then I think what I'll do is I'll turn it over to you, Jess, and then Sharon, if you want to chime in too, feel free to chime in. And then I think what would be good is, of the questions that you got, you can answer as many as you can or that you have information for. And then if there's ones that we want to follow up on, we can either follow up or we can come back and share in February. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So a couple things I just want to mention. First of all, thank you for noting it is, I mean, we have a world-class CTE program. I mean, I would venture to say you could go anywhere and you won't find as many CTE course offerings as we have in Bellevue. We also have a partnership with WANEC, which is a multi-district CTE. So kids that come, like Bellevue High School has this amazing automotive program, but it's a 3-period WANEC program that kids from any school in Bellevue can go to, or any district, North Shore, Lake Washington, Snoqualmie Valley. So it's remarkable the things that we're offering. And we are building up from elementary to middle to high school, especially in the area of computer science and STEM. And so what I'll say is that we have a program that was at Wilburton, but now we are having our computer science specialist who was helping out in that building at Clyde Hill and at Enitai. We also have a computer science specialist that serves all of our title schools, I think, plus Ardmore. So we've had that for the past few years from before the pandemic, because we are working on the equitable access to the STEM field for kids of color and for girls in particular. What I'll say is it's interesting because they're getting, especially at the title schools, they're getting coding classes every single week. And yet, as they go to middle school, we still see some self-selection based on like societal stereotypes. I mean, it is like unbelievable how strong a force those things are. And so we are continuing to work on that. We have to be very targeted in our strategy to help kids see themselves in the field of computer science and STEM. So that we are working on, just to let you know about that. And then maybe there are significant changes that we're making. I don't know about the broader strategy. That's something that Jess is going to be working on this year. But what I'll say is, for this year, we are doing things like expanding CTE offerings. We brought culinary over to Sammamish, as well as, kicked off our aviation program, which we're hoping to grow into a 2-period program. And then we're also looking at things like, we have an amazing teaching program. So Director Watson, you talked about our teaching program at Newport, but we're looking at ways to incorporate our dual language kids and our dual language classrooms with the teaching academy, which is like a whole new kind of uncharted territory for raising up kind of the next generation of dual language teachers, whether it's in Spanish, Mandarin, Arabic, or whatever language. So we're very excited about that. So I'll just start with that, and then I'm going to turn over to Jess, and then Sharon, if you want to chime in too, feel free to just kind of scooch up and share. Okay. All right, go ahead.
So I'll start by saying I'll look into the transportation question. It's not part of what I understand about the CTE program providing, so I'll just acknowledge that right away, that I'll definitely look into that, but I'm not able to answer that right now. All right, so big picture school and international school, the question about the access for college and career advisors. We don't have a college career advisor. They are the same position that's been around for a while, and we've traditionally supported them through the Perkins grant. So this is the same position. At Big Picture, they do have their large internship programs. So they actually have a coordinator for that. So we haven't traditionally supported them in that way. I think because they've had that additional position that actually sets students up in internships. So, and then I'm going to look into international. I've been talking with Russell White a little bit about their focus week and thinking about careers access for the students at international. All right, do you want to answer anything?
I was just going to speak to the BSD website. I think you all know we're going through a massive website update right now, and that's something that Jess is working on in really closely with our fabulous communications department. And so you will see a lot more, will be more prevalent in the future. Let me see what other questions. Oh, and also, I think somebody asked about the nursing and teaching academy. Yes, Jess has been looking at all of the disproportionality that you saw in the report, and we will come up with strategies for each of those. I think there was also a question about budget and prioritizing, and that is something that Jess will be working on as she gets up to speed here. And the issue around the college credits is we recognize that, and Tom Dunwald and Scott Powers have been working on updating a website. We now have a section on the website that's called dual credits, where we are updating the AP credits, the IB credits, how you earn dual credits, how you earn college and the high school credits. And we're going to be sending a letter home. It just was, I just proofed it a couple of days ago, centrally to all the families so that they're getting it in multiple ways on the website, through their principals, through their teacher, and then also from us, directly from us. Because we did notice that some students didn't even know about it. I think that was all the questions, but.
Are there any things that we missed that you want to kind of repeat? Or if you want, we can follow up with me by email too. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I'll repeat. Sharon, thanks for directly addressing the college and the high school. That is a thing. But I brought it up more as a parallel in this case. And I think it's great that we're providing more information so kids can and their families can take action. I wonder how we might, even in that program, take a more proactive role in helping the kids grab the wheel and drive for themselves and feel empowered and have the autonomy and the agency to actually execute on that, potentially by putting class time to it or other things that are much more proactive than passive information, which is usually a great complement. And I'm also wondering, in this program, in CTE, how do we proactively make sure that those kids who are signing up for the classes are getting the full experience and the full benefit that they can, and that they know when it's worthwhile to follow the full course, how they can proceed in terms of what internship opportunities it might afford, how they can get credits, anything and everything. How do we not just passively provide information, but like how do we go in and help give them agency and help them engage, ultimately in the ways that kind of drive their lives forward in the places they want to. Just to be clear, just like we do provide world-class opportunities, but they're only so good as how well that we make sure that the kids can access them. And part of our issues are really related to, and sometimes inequitable or at best random, in terms of who gets the access, the full access, and who gets less of the access. And we want to be really intentional about maximizing for our kids. So that's really what I'm driving at, not anything more.
Just kind of piggyback on that, I'm wondering if we have, we have college fairs and we have job fairs and things. Do we have a CTE fair where we have all these different programs in one location where students could have access to and see what that looks like?
Talk about our exploratory.
Well, I'll start by talking about course registration times. Schools do a number of different things to promote the different courses. So in my time at Bellevue, the video department put together snips of every course, and they showed it within the school to show the access to those different electives. And students actually used to rotate through an elective fair before course registration. And so each school does it a little differently. Newport, one of the teachers told me that she was sick for the day, and she had one of her students do her presentation, and she said she had more signups for her biotechnology class than she's ever had. So each school does it in a little different way in terms of providing information about the CTE courses. We're always looking for additional ways to make sure students know about those programs.
The last thing I'll just mention, just real quick in closing this out, is we do lean on our college and career advisors to be the ones to really help kids kind of manage like the classes that they're taking and the direction that they're going in their careers. But it is part of the broader work that we're doing around high school and beyond planning. And so we are constantly trying to work and iterate on improving the support for kids and planning out the courses that they want to take, so that they can get to where they want to be after high school. And so there's a broader initiative around high school and beyond planning that we're undertaking here in this district. The other thing I'll mention is I think we're looking at things like CTE exploratory and different ways to get younger kids and like to try out some of these classes. Like in the summertime, we did a CTE kind of summer camp so kids could take rocketry and things like that to test it out. So we're trying out some of those things. And then we're just continuing to try to build out the communication for kids around CTE because there's so many things that even I'm still continuing to learn. But what I'll say is I'm excited about Jess. Just started on July 1st. And so she in some ways has a lot of experience kind of as a CTE teacher and has relationships with a lot of our CTE folks, but is as she kind of figures out kind of the lay of the land She already has a ton of ideas on how to just take things to the next level, and we're excited about that.
Seema, before we go, I'm afraid that my communication has been poor because when I hear some of the responses, I feel like I wasn't clear what I'm asking. It's not about enrollment. It's not about getting kids psyched for the courses. It's about those kids who do take a course. How do we help them decide whether or not to go all the way through? How do we help them proactively pursue the certifications that are relevant to them, the pre-certifications, the opportunities? This CTE program is so much more than courses. We know that. And our kids might know it, but I'm not sure that they proactively will take the initiative all the time to take full advantage of it. And there are probably many more kids that could benefit than are. So I'm kind of wondering how we are addressing that. And I don't need an answer here on the spot. I just want to make sure that that's getting attention so that instead of trying to see if we have to clean it up later or something, that it's part of our approach from the get-go, that we're really being intentional about helping proactively get the kids to take full advantage.
The last thing one thing I'll just mention is I think we can make the assumption that the teachers work really hard to make sure that the kids know how to get through certification. I mean, every single teacher, every single relationship that the teachers have with the kids is all about getting the kids to be successful in CTE and in the programming all the way through certification. So I would say, just so that the community can hear, that is the foundation. Like, we believe that every teacher is working on that with the kids. Like, every teacher who works in CTE is always about getting kids to make sure that they're successful in their classes and going through the programs. I mean, it's extraordinary. I mean, the teachers that are here that just show up to be there for the kids who are here in the audience right now, I mean, it's really incredible. So foundationally, what I'll tell the Bellevue community is our CTE teachers, they work so hard to do exactly what you're saying. And so I feel 100% confident in that. And we have all these other supports that are in place to make sure that the kids have the support that they need. And we are continuing to improve on getting kids excited about it. And something that you brought up, Director Chu, on Monday was around making sure that we're also not guiding kids with what we think that they should be doing, following stereotypes or things like that, but we give them the world and then let them choose. And that is something that we're continuing to work on as well.
I'm going to move to Vice President Shuey, who I think I saw your hand up. So.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, I mean, we've said it a little bit, but I wanted to say more explicitly that while certifications is one measure of success and an important one, just exposing kids to those classes is a success too. So the more kids who take these world-class classes, even if it's just one or two classes, that I consider as extraordinary success. And I've said at other meetings, probably before Jess, you came on, that my best classes, K through 12, were what we called, home ec classes and wood shop and our metal shop. And I still use all those skills, even metal shop. So it's something that stuck with me. So thank you you have a much broader diversity of classes than the ones I remember from when I was in high school, but it's a success to have the kids taking those classes, period. Thank you.
Okay, we will, thank you. I think this closes out this topic and item. Oh, yeah. That's right. Do I have a second to my motion to approve the CTE report? Okay, I think we've had our discussion. I know there's some questions that are going to get answered later, but I believe we have enough to be able to make this vote. So all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, the motion carries and the report is approved. Thank you. And thank you. Executive Director Harrison, I think you're up next for board business.
Thank you. Policy 0200, and the title of that policy is Policy Adoption and Revision and Administrative Procedures. We sometimes refer to it as the policy. You had a good conversation on Monday, and just a quick reminder, that's the third time that you've seen this. This is the second reading version. You'll notice that there is nothing shaded in yellow, which means that there were no changes since Monday. And just as a quick refresher, the reason why this policy is being brought forward with proposed revisions is the current policy does not reflect your current policy development and maintenance and review practice. So basically, the references to the former standing committees that did policy work have been removed, and the explanation of how those former committees did their work has also been removed. And to reflect the actual process, there is a draft procedure also in front of you tonight for approval. The current policy and this revised version indicates that any policy in the 0 series, your governance series, and any policy in the 1000 series, your operational series, is approved by you. So again, this is policy 0200, and again, it just simply has brought the purpose is to bring your policy into alignment with your current policy practices.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion and ask for a second to approve 0200 as presented.
Seconded.
Is there discussion? Director Chu.
Yeah, I'd like to note that one of the comments I gave previously is that I think it's not just the superintendent or designee who ought to be bringing this to the board, that there is room and it is important for the board itself to be able to bring policy to the board. And policy is the board's primary mode of governance. It is our primary directive, and ceding that entire thing in this way to the staff as opposed to as a shared thing, I think is a mistake. So
it was originally written in a passive voice, and I thought that enabled anybody to do it. I think there was an ask that it be designated. We could revert back to what you originally had, which was left it, I think, open. But
That's correct.
I will just say, I didn't hear you bring that up on Monday. So
I did not bring it up on Monday. I had a communication issue. I apologize.
Okay.
I'll just respond to that and make 2 points. One, that is accurate. The language obviously does not preclude that. And specifically in the procedure, and George, if it's okay with you, you can pull up procedure 0200P, the procedure right at the top there, second paragraph, line 9. There are several reasons that would precipitate revisions, full review, consideration of a new policy. These include legislative requirements, updates to WASDA, model policies, a review required by policy or board, staff, community requests. So it was addressed in the procedure as well.
Addressed in the procedure. I see a hand up from Vice President Shuey, and I'm guessing it might be on this topic. So go ahead.
Say, I thought we did discuss this, maybe, yeah. And so I'll just repeat what I said then, which is I believe that if it were intended to be only the superintendent or designee, it would say will be presented only by, and the fact that that the superintendent or designee can bring it does not preclude others. And so that was my input then, and I don't know if maybe Director Harrison, you made a choice, but I think we did discuss it. Maybe, was it not on Monday? I remember.
It wasn't. It was a previous reading.
Yeah, so I think that it's just maybe a difference in interpretation of the language. But I do go back to the fact that I know that Director Watson has raised it a number of times that I don't recall the conversation about why we didn't put it in the active voice so that superintendent or designee. I'm prepared to vote on it, and I will vote in favor of it, but I just am raising the issue again of the active voice. I don't recall the outcome of that, because if it were an active voice, then it would be a responsibility of the superintendent or designee and avoid the issue of whether anybody else could do it.
Okay, I think we're going to, why don't we, did you have something you wanted to?
Well, I just wonder if, would it be a harm to just take out, I mean,
which is how it was originally presented,
so
yeah.
Yeah, George, can you put the policy back up so that way we can see, the board can see what we're talking about?
I think that was how it was originally. And then
There we
I
go,
think
that's
there was a
good.
push for an active voice, but I think if we go back to what you originally had.
Dangling something or
Yeah, so it's line 14 is what we're specifically referring to here.
Or line, yeah, I was going to say, Director Watson, I don't want to
Yeah.
speak for you, but if it were the superintendent designee at the beginning of the sentence, would that also solve the issue?
Director Chu?
So I think the attempt to make it active voice didn't work. It's not actually active voice. It remains in the passive voice, and it
Right.
has a clause in it that now presents an implied, which some people may infer from or others may not, but a potentially implied limitation on who can participate. I would be fine with just removing the phrase. So I would propose that we amend this to remove the by the superintendent or designate. I do agree. I think I have been a proponent as well for policies should not set requirements on unspecified persons, because then we're wondering who's going to do it. But in this case, we're not setting a responsibility so much as saying that if we're going to do policy, this is how it will be done. It will be presented to the board like this by whomever is doing it would be the implication, which is a little different than saying, putting some kind of formal,
Obligation.
yeah.
Right.
So anyway, I would be amenable. So I am motioning
And
that
I'm
we
seconding.
amend this. Thank you. To remove the by superintendent or designee.
I think Director Watson, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I did. I'm basically agreeing with Christine. I will always look for what I call the absent actor. We don't know who's doing this thing, but in this case, maybe we just take it out so that basically anyone can do it.
Okay, and especially I think in the case that you've got 200P explaining it, it feels
Yeah,
okay. I think
I would
Director
agree.
RS has a comment too, and
Yeah,
then
I would
think
agree.
we can move.
No, I was just going to second the motion with the amendment.
Yeah, I think I did, and we're all in violent agreement. We're
And just-
seconded, so let's vote on it.
Yeah, not just before you vote, I do want to say that as the actor who typically brings these things in front of you, there was never any intent to preclude, board recommendation. And the language that's there was the existing language in the current policy. So I think what you're proposing is much stronger, and I appreciate that.
Okay, all right, let's vote. All those in favor of the language in 0200 as modified through the motion that's been seconded from Director Chu. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Okay, the motion carries as modified. Shall we go to 0200P?
Please.
All right, I'll let you, I guess, is it already?
Just SEMA for the record, because Shannon's not here to call us on it. I'm going to assume that the modification was accepted by John, so we didn't have to vote on each motion, because technically I think we're supposed to vote on the amendment and then
I
vote
think
on
you're
that.
correct.
But I think it's
Yeah.
okay.
I felt like
because
that was
when we
just a
make
nice
when we take the change, yeah.
sandwich of
It's nice to be
understanding.
trusted.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So yeah, 0200P basically just codifies your current process. It's, as you know, it's been kind of an evolution over the past year and 4 months. And I am very, very pleased with the current process. I think it's working well. And again, you don't see anything shaded in yellow, so there's been no changes to what you saw on Monday.
Okay, just one question. If you scroll all the way up, I thought there was something you had that we had in, so maybe I'm incorrect. Okay, I thought on Monday there was something that was a modification, so that's good. All right, thank you. I'm going to move to approve 0200P as presented. Do I have a second? And then we can have discussion.
Second.
Thank you. Is there discussion? Director Chu?
Sorry, I think this policy stuff is super important because it's the base of what we do. When I read the first part about there are reasons that would precipitate revisions, I want to just ask a question about the number 4 item. Is number 4?
Do you mind saying which line?
Yes, it would be, I don't mind. Line 14.
Okay, got it.
Reason 4, board staff and community request. The question that I have is, if we as a board have prioritized something, or our superintendent has noted that in order to achieve our goals, we should be focused on changes to X, Y, and Z policies, does that fall under 4? And were you thinking that the superintendent is captured by staff?
Yes, I was thinking that staff would act at the superintendent's direction.
Would you be amenable to
Of course, I would be
adding
amenable.
the word board/superintendent/staff/community request? I understand that the superintendent is staff, but I think as the leader of the district, he or she might be the person motivating these changes to complement the work.
I think that's a good addition.
I'll second the amendment.
John's accepted.
Okay.
Okay, so then, I don't know if you can write it in real time so we can see it, but we would be voting on O200P as presented with one modification. After the word board, on line 14, we would see capitalized superintendent, then /staff, and everything
Correct.
else is as presented. Okay, so we have a motion that's been seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Okay, the motion carries. Thank you.
One thing for if this gets updated as we go along, I don't think it's quite clear in here. And I apologize, I lost speaker on Monday and I just have been traveling nonstop, so I wasn't able to follow up offline. It's not entirely clear how an exception would be made to the preferred process of going through the priorities, the policy priorities. But I suspect, as always, we will encounter some exceptions that bring something to the head of the queue. And I think you want to cover that in here.
Okay, thank you.
All right, shall we move to the harassment?
That would be great. Thank you, board. Appreciate your support. Can you make that? There we go. So this policy you saw for the first time on August the 3rd for first reading. And at that time, I explained that the proposal was to rescind the current policy 5011, sexual harassment of district staff, and replace it with the WASDA model language, which does a couple of key things. Number one, it brings the policy into legal compliance with legal requirements around investigations. And secondly, it streamlined the former language and provided section titles, et cetera. So this is a classic example of our current practices, even though our current practices are in alignment with law, but our policy was not. And what precipitated these revisions was the WASDA model update, which was updated to reflect changes in legislation and guidance from Department of Education and the Office of Civil Rights. So the changes that you see are in the track changes. They were as a result of additional feedback. In August, when you saw this for first reading, you made the really good point about how much staff input had been provided and asked us to seek additional staff feedback. So we did that through a survey of staff in the regular publication of Thrive, which is a publication of the Human Resources Department. So the changes and track changes were revisions as a result of that staff feedback. We actually had staff go through line by line and mark up the copy, which was great. The only change that you see in yellow, I believe, is in line 15. And it was an addition suggestion by Vice President Shuey to make that sentence grammatically and intentionally accurate by making that rather than just and, that it be and or. And just if you could scroll down, Jess, I believe those were all the, I know, keep scrolling down. There were a couple of additional changes that right here, I caught just basically grammatical errors. So there's a couple of additional yellow shaded areas that were grammatical errors, but nothing substantive. So recommending and seeking your approval tonight for the second reading version as presented.
Okay. I move that we approve policy as revised and presented here, 5011. Do I have a second?
Seconded for purposes of discussion.
Okay, and any board directors have any discussion on this?
I do.
Okay, Vice President Shuey.
Great, thank you for the changes. And in line 15, as somebody who cares a lot about grammar, I am going to, and with the PSATs and SATs coming up, I just want to sort of model that the sentence. I have two comments. One is that my original comment was about the fact that they're not parallel, that it can occur student to adult or adult to adult, or can be carried out by a group of students or adults.
George, could you scroll up?
Yeah, because it's a PDF, I can't mark it.
Sorry, up. There we go. I'm sorry, Vice President Shuey, I just wanted to make sure that we could see what you're talking about.
Okay, great. So you've got the two verbs, can occur and the can be carried out by. And so the first phrase, can occur student to adult, comma, adult to adult, is missing an or in between those. And so that's my first comment, because to make the sentence parallel, it would be can occur student to adult or adult to adult. Or in the second, this is my 7th grade diagramming class, which is the second to the CTE classes. The parallel would be that that the second phrase, the second verbal phrases can be carried out by. And so, is anybody understanding me?
Yeah, I do, because you're talking
It
about.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. So there's a.
One is about the can occur, the other one's about can carried. Can be
Thank you.
carried. Got it. Yeah.
Right.
I wondered just if we're going to be
And
that
then,
picky, if we need hyphens.
yeah, hyphens, I would have put hyphens in, but I was trying to make fewer changes than more, but yes, hyphens and the with it or would be perfect and would be much appreciated. And if any student is listening to this, that you can help study for your PSATs and SATs. But my other comment, which I apologize is new, because it's just occurring to me now, it seems a little bit odd to say can occur student to adult, because it seems like it's suggesting that the student could sexually harass the adult rather than adult to student, because the adult is the one with the power.
Well, this policy is in the personnel series, and it is possible where staff are in fact potentially victims of sexual harassment.
Okay, so
by
then
students.
should it actually be student to adult, adult to student, or adult to adult?
Yeah.
So it should be all of the, yeah, so should we amend it to include all three?
But
Yeah.
this is just for staff though, right? This is not.
Correct.
So it won't be student, adult
Okay.
to student. It would
Correct.
be,
Not student to student, but would it
Not-
ever be adult to student?
no, because we have a separate,
in the other
there's separate sexual
Okay.
harassment policy for the students and kids.
Maybe then, I know this is getting a little rarefied, but sexual harassment under this policy, because otherwise it suggests, if somebody just reads it, that you can't have other kinds of sexual harassment,
It says for the purposes of this policy.
except that that's in the first sentence.
Okay.
And I believe the student sexual harassment policy is referenced here.
Okay, so if I understand Vice President Shuey, on line 15, we would say sexual harassment under this policy can occur.
Right.
That seems like a minor change, but I don't know what other board directors think.
I just don't want to suggest or appear to suggest, as was in my mind for a moment, as I reread it just tonight, that, there can't be.
Yeah, the only issue with that is if we modify within every sentence for clarity, so that if it was taken in the abstract, somebody would understand, then we probably have to start, like, our policies are going to end up having to be quite complex, because every time we would have to remove all doubt
Agree.
across every sentence.
Maybe what we can do is just take out the sexual harassment and just say sexual nature that can occur. Then it's both parts of it is under for purposes of this policy.
Okay, before we, as we
Correct?
consider all possible options, I want to also hear from Director Chu.
So I just want to weigh in and say, I think that it is important that we don't have sentences that imply that we are defining sexual harassment.
And I think that the way this sentence is structured, it implies that the sentence defines it, and it is a limited set of cases that are defined. I started to try to come up with a way to restructure it, and I think this one's a tricky one to do on the fly. I know we need to get this finished, but
But if we put that, like for purposes of this policy, sexual harassment means unwelcome conduct or communication of a sexual nature that can occur. I think that solves.
between,
I think that would work.
but wait, that can't finish that can't.
Just the next sentence. So collapse the first and second sentences into one, and then it's clear that it's all under for purposes of.
If I understand, you would take out the period after the word nature.
Correct.
Then you would take out the word sexual harassment, and that would be replaced by that. So.
Right.
I still think it implies comprehensive listing. I'm not going to keep us from moving forward, but if somebody were to come up with something that was like what I would consider an administrative fix to clarify this, you could always bring it back to the board or something.
Well,
yeah,
can we put the word that, take out the sexual harassment, but that can occur, such as, or a term that would suggest these are some possibilities, but not limited to.
But I think we are saying or hearing that it's limited to these for policy. Is that correct? Yeah.
Okay, well, in that case.
So I would propose, I don't know where we are in the procedure, but I would propose an amendment to say that, to replace sexual harassment, take out the period, and then the rest of it would say can occur student hyphen to hyphen adult or adult hyphen to hyphen adult, and or can be carried out by a group of students or adults.
I second the modifications as described by Vice President Shuey. I'm not hearing a motion for anything additional, so I need to ask Executive Director Harrison, as described, do you have any concerns about what was just?
No, I think it strengthens it.
Okay. I'm going to call for a motion for a vote, but Director Chu.
I just want to note that the conversations around this policy, probably the most important conversations that we had around it, aren't the perfect wording, although that's important. But they were questions of our superintendent to know what data we have to inform this, how we're making sure that we're accessible. And so I think it's important somehow that this be, that visibility into the well-being of our staff and how well we take care of them and tend to these issues remains visible. And I think there are opportunities to do that with our new health and wellness committee that's being structured. So I would just like to recommend that you consider when you do that, we bring that group together, that part of the convening looks at a review of the various issues we deal with and finding ways to keep it visible, because that's the important thing. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call for a vote then. I think we already know what the change is as proposed. It's been seconded, accepted. So all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, the motion carries as modified, and I think you are clear on what was in there, so I think we're
I
all
am.
good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there's nothing more on policy, then we move to director discussion. And we have, just as a reminder, we have about 25 minutes for director discussion, and then we will take a 5-minute break and then take for a very short executive session. Okay, so who would like to kick us off?
Will we set a timer?
We can, and we should.
Yeah.
So why don't we just go ahead and we have 25 minutes. It will be 5 minutes for each person. Why don't we do it in that way where you can use your time as you want, including inviting someone. I'm going to start with Director Chu, who may not want to go first, but I think in light of WASDA, it feels like a good place to start. So you and Director Aras having come back, so I wonder if I can start with you tonight.
For the record, I would just like to state that when we have things like this that are basically board of a nature that of the good of the larger board, I don't think that we should take away a director's discussion time to do it. We've talked about this before, but I will use my discussion time for it. I have another topic that I had hoped to cover, but I will default and do what you've asked.
In
So
the
for-
future, in the future, if you want it added as a board business item, if you let me know on Monday, or
I thought
then
I did. So I guess that didn't come across clearly.
That was not my understanding, or
And
Superintendent
when I sent my,
Armaki's.
and when I sent my
Yeah.
memo out, it said, we can discuss as needed.
Yeah, and I interpreted it as director, so.
I see.
Yeah,
Yep.
I
So,
did not
so I'll
appreciate that.
do what
Yeah.
you requested. Right now, there is a moment, and I probably feel it some of in here as well, that there's a moment in political process that things are not as collaborative as potentially they once were. Things are a little more polarized. Things are a little bit more, just people are working on agendas and not collaborating for the best of kids. And what we saw at the WASDA General Assembly was a lot of obstructionist political maneuvering to keep people from having discussions, like literally to stop discussion about topics. There was a recommendation, or just for an example, where we removed a permanent position that said that WASDA believes that our teachers should be compensated competitively, which is a great position to have when advocating with your legislators to say that we need adequate funding. It's not okay to give us some money and hope that that does the trick. We need competitive wages, not just for our teachers, but for all our educators. When we brought up that that was worth having a discussion over, we spent more time debating whether or not we should have a discussion about it than having any discussion about it whatsoever. And there were a lot of folks who just voted. So that became removed from our positions. So we lost the weighted vote. So that means that, there's 20 districts in King County and we represent a quarter of the kids, but we would now have whatever 20 divided by 295 is of a say in what happens. And the problem with that is that it's really not about adults, it's about the needs of kids. And that's been lost. It's not about whether or not each district cares. But the other problem that's coming up is that the agenda that some of the smaller districts, are trying to promote is taking away from our ability to serve all our kids. There's a lot of moves for content removal from education and from open discussion and learning. So we have opportunities we can participate in as individuals in different collaborations across districts to put pressure on WASDA to address that. But for me, I think the bigger issue is how do we come back to helping WASDA go through and become a positive voice? And that might be naive and it might be enabling. So it might be more important that we first form some level of coalition and put pressure so that the voices aren't silenced. But I think that the real long game is figuring out how to collaborate again. So there is a collaboration that I'm involved in with a whole group of districts from all across the state. And I'll make sure that Jane is connected to that as well. I don't want to, there's no actions that we're asking to take, but we could write a letter if we wanted to, and we could have a position on this for our legislators if we wanted. I'd just love some really quick reactions about whether or not you would like to pursue it as a thing unto itself with our legislators, or if you'd like to do that more as a smaller individual thing and to let that be guided differently. But I do think that there are some hammers that can be thrown, but there's also some more collaborative tools that we can use. So I'd love just any feedback.
Yeah, I think it's a real representation problem because our students are now underrepresented. It's so thank you for raising it to our attention. I would love to see the possibility of a board resolution defining that our students need to be represented, and they're not even being represented proportionally anymore. So thank you.
What strikes me about what you just said is that some people in some other districts are saying they want to remove content because it's not appropriate for their community, yet they want to, it sounds like, not let us have the content that is appropriate for our community.
It varies, Carolyn, from case to case. There are some folks who will say that they're just trying to do what's right for their community, but it has implications for ours that are limiting as well. And there are others who genuinely do just want to limit things for their own communities. So it's tricky, but I think the impact of it right now is in limiting things for our kids and for kids in adjacent communities, which is part of our broader community.
I feel like this is sort of tough news that you've brought us. I have to digest it a bit.
I think we need to act as a unit and work collaboratively with other districts to propose something to the legislation.
If everyone is of that mindset, if we have a quick minute to hear from Seema, I'm happy to work with Jane or somebody on a resolution if that would be useful for our board to sign.
Sure. I think, yeah, I mean, I think the unweighted vote is a problem. So, and I think the idea of a resolution is good as long as we have 24 hours in advance. I mean, we would need it by the Wednesday morning before our next board meeting to be able to have enough time to consider it. But ideal would be the Monday meeting, and then we could actually talk about it. Yeah, I mean, I think unweighted is terrible, and I heard about it from Director Aris when I saw her on Saturday. Okay, would you like to go next?
So I had a privilege to talk to some of our community members about our programs at large, and one of the things that was brought up to my attention, which I thought it's a unique well, it's not unique. It's a unique concern to us because of our desire to be multilingual school district. Our desire to create that opportunity so that all of our students are multilingual eventually. With that comes with some challenges, which it's already existed because we have a couple of schools that is immersion programs, both Chinese and Spanish. But looking at the nuances of the program, I think this is something we need to really seriously consider is how do we provide services to our students who dominant language is now other than English because their academics is service to them in another language. And so for instance, say if our students are struggling and they need additional services, or for that matter, they are desiring to be tested for HiCAT program because they're showing that potential. And are we providing those opportunities in the language that they're developing their academic language in? And so I really liked what Dr. Aramaki said today, which is to create a pipeline for teacher certification from our language programs. I think that would do wonders. But I wonder if we need to start really thinking about ways to promote multilingualism within our staff, both our paras, our certificated staff, and beyond. And how do we attract multilingual staff members? Do we need to, think about in the future as we go into bargaining, how do we encourage that maybe in the bargaining line, or, how do we, I would like to really kind of put it out there for us to ponder and think about how really providing that service, because not only attract those people who are multilingual into our district, but we also have to keep them because we're going to be asking them to do additional work, right? It's not just their daily work, but we're tapping into them for translation services or various other things, or ask them to be at meetings and so on. I think about sitting in IEPs when I was a teacher and having to tap into additional staff who spoke another language, and which means I'm compounding their work. And so how do we say, we want you to do the work, and we're going to acknowledge that. So just some thoughts. I want to make sure that we are really doing just, and that we are, as we are creating this opportunity to be multilingual, that we're also making sure that we are providing all the services in an appropriate way, both, whether it's advanced placement testing or special education testing or any other kind of testing which is require them to utilize a language skill, which may not necessarily be English. And that also comes with the fact that we are more than 120. I've lost count how many languages we have in our school district. So, the more we could get, more multilingual staff that we could get in our district would be very much appreciated.
I had a few different comments and then that I had pre-planned, and then a couple that have come up during our meeting today. One that came up today is as we were talking about CTE, and we talked about increasing the number of folks from underrepresented demographics in certain fields, like girls in computer science, for example. And one thought that occurred to me that I just wanted to say out loud for us all to think about is that the other side of that same coin is that we should be increasing pay for the professions that are historically occupied by women, for example, because I believe that one of the reasons that teachers are underpaid in this country and in many places, but it is because it's historically been a profession that women choose to pursue. So we should continue to try to increase the representation in areas that are more lucrative and give women choices in their lives, but also try to make sure that teachers, for example, as Director Chu was saying earlier, that we make sure that teachers are paid more. To Director Aris's point about the different ways that we can support multilingualism, one thing that came into the board's mailbox in the last couple of weeks and that I've heard my kids talk about is that a lot of teachers now will turn on their whiteboards and PowerPoint. And so in class, especially for the kids who are immigrants, they're able to absorb better because they're hearing the English but reading in their native languages. And so I think that that's a great tool that I commend the teachers for implementing. A third item that I was thinking about earlier today was that I was at a continuing legal ed program that was on diversity and equity today, and there was a lot of talk about, or some talk about, hybrid. And you've heard me talk a lot of times over the years about the importance of having hybrid options, meaning that we can participate either as students, board members, staff, either online or in person. I found it interesting at the CLE that there were people who were really pushing the in-person narrative. And I raised my hand, of course, to talk about the equities of it, because as I've said before, as I said today at that CLE, and I'll say again tonight, is that online is an important extra feature and option for single working parents, for people who are caregivers of young children or elderly parents, and for people who have physical access problems. And so I encourage us to continue to make all of our meetings accessible to everybody through the hybrid options of both online and in person. And one thing that I wanted to just reiterate, because we're all learning these terms, I continue to hear remote and virtual used. I encourage us to talk about online because remote suggests that there is a center of power and of influence and everybody else is satellite and away from the center where we're all equal participants. And so online allows us to not have a value judgment to whether somebody's centered or remote. And virtual also suggests that the person is not contributing fully and in a real way when everybody who's online is just as capable of participating as in person. And then two last items. Oh, and I also wanted to ask folks to be mindful not to say, I'm sorry that I am not in person, because it creates a climate where people feel the pressure to be in person, and that is the North Star of participation. Similarly, saying, I'm sorry, I'm not on camera has that same impact. Although I do, when I'm working with a deaf colleague, I will try to make sure my camera is on. And if I can't, for whatever reason, in that case, I do apologize to that person. But if there aren't hard of hearing or deaf colleagues that I'm working with, then I don't apologize for not being on camera, because there are lots of different reasons why people are not on camera, as our school district recognized during the pandemic with students not being required to be on camera. Two final items that I wanted to just mention tonight is that on the timer, thank you for including a timer. I think we should abide by the same kinds of standards that we set up for our public comment and community. And I don't know why ours is not ringing though, whereas the ones through public comment does ring. So that's just well, let's see what happens and then I'll stop
It
talking.
actually will.
Okay, good. I didn't hear it earlier, but sounds good. And I will forego my final comment. Thanks.
Director Watson?
Yeah, I find this week that I'm worrying a bit about our low-income students in the light of the budget cutbacks that we've had to undergo. And of course, one of the worries is going to be transportation, but I know that you all understand that and are working on that, and we're trying to find bus drivers, but it is a real issue, I would think, you know, if you don't have any other way to get to school and aren't going to be affording an Uber or something like that. So that one worries me. But another one that trickled to me through the PTA is that I know PTA used to always bring a bunch of snacks to keep in the main offices of the various school buildings in case a kid somehow, you know, missed getting something to eat or just got hungry between classes, maybe didn't have money, whatever. And for a while we thought that was in the building budget now, and it was a great relief, so we didn't have to scramble for all those donations. And now it seems like it's back to not being in the building budget, or at least some schools are being told it's not, and PTAs are trying to scramble to make sure there's something available at the main office for kids who just wander in hungry. So I was going to bring that up as something to look into. And then related to that is the people are wondering what's going on with the breakfast machines at Sammamish, because apparently they look like they're still functional, but there's not breakfast in them. So wondering about that. And then another one of these financial issues that came up was I hadn't understood this, because when my son was involved with sports as a team, we raised money through the Booster Club to buy the uniforms. So it wasn't a problem generally. I mean, there are a few things you had to get, but it wasn't as big a financial hit. But what is this about sports, specifically cheer, where you get on the team and then you have to pay $1,000 to get the uniform? I don't know what's going on there, but I hope somebody can look at it, because I thought maybe it's not a WIA sport, but now I see that it is, and it's been around for like ever. So, and are there other sports like that that I don't know about, where kids are having to make a big financial outlay that not all of them can afford? So I wanted to bring that up, because, you know, when you're going through life as a low-income kid, and now you don't have a bus, and you don't have a snack, and you don't have a uniform, it could start to be rough. That's it. I mean, it's just raising those issues. I don't have the solutions.
Well, you have 2 minutes left, so if you want to hear somebody react to it, if somebody wants to chime in or discuss that. Director Aris?
Well, I was just going to say, if no one has any comments or regarding it, we give that 2 minutes to Director Chu to share her comments that's outside of the legislative work.
Good idea. Go ahead.
That's okay. Go. We'll keep going through everyone. Thank you. That's very kind, but let's keep going.
Can I make a comment? Just to
Go ahead. Yeah, to Director Watson.
Thank you for bringing that up. So I just follow up on some of those things. What I'll say is, when it comes to like food and feeding our kids, we did not cut any funds for that. If anything, we're expanding our ability to serve kids with food, particularly in our title schools. But I'll follow up with you on that on the particular instance, just to kind of find out, because we never, well, I mean, we always make sure that kids are fed and have food when they go to school. So, but I will follow up on that. And then thank you for bringing up the Sammamish High School vending machines, because for some reason, the teenagers really love to eat out of the vending machines, including my own. So I'm like, all right. And that might be why they're empty right now. So we can double check on things like that. Thank you for bringing that up. So, oh, and then with regards to cheer. So I did see that on social media as well. And it is, I mean, what I would say is access to any of our activities in athletics, sports, and things like that. It is extraordinary how expensive, whether they're playing golf or on cheer. I mean, it is, and it highlights an inequity in our system in general. Because when you look at like students and music, so much of the talent that we see is access to lessons. And I mean, so some of it is talent for sure, and some of it is hard work for sure. And a lot of it is parents' ability to pay for private lessons and resources like that. And so something that we have to be committed to as a system is to continuing to kind of remove barriers around access, because just to pay for the clothes and things like that, I mean, it's just, if you're a family who does not have enough money, you might want your kids to participate, but the heartbreak in not being able to afford the things that they need, it is an issue. So that's something that we can look at ongoing.
Seema,
Okay,
I know
so
we're at the end of that time, but can I make it like a 10-second comment? The removing barriers is great, but changing the culture and being more proactive about how we review them, so we don't just catch the ones that make it onto big social media, because there's an equity issue in that approach as well. And I think it's really important that if we want to systematically comb through and find these things, then we should make that something that we are all vigilant about and that we build into the processes.
all right, I guess we can start mine, George. So I think the thing I wanted to, I guess, mention, and if I don't run out the time with trying to describe what I was thinking of, get people's input, was just that I feel that we have an opportunity, and I'm looking kind of at our Chief Communications Officer, but this does not rest on you, but I feel like people don't completely understand the through line of affordable housing and what it means in terms of your daily life. And we all remember this during the pandemic. People were like, or every time it snows, we'll get emails like, my husband's willing to plow the driveway to the school. It's like, but our people don't realize that most of our teachers can't get here either, and they don't live here. And yes, they could walk to the schools if they lived here. So I don't think the end-to-end understanding, which feels so salient when it comes to transportation, is really understood, or a disaster and nurses and anyone who's not making the incomes that I clearly have been brought in by tech, by and large. So I feel like that's an opportunity on the table for maybe for us all to think about how could we do a better job, because I think that push for affordable housing inevitably hits the NIMBY sort of not in my backyard pushback, and then but then people also seem unaware that that shows up with transportation, with school opening, closing, and all the different things that like seem to surprise everybody, that like retail stores often close because or restaurants because they can't staff people, because so I guess I just wonder, it seems like we're so uniquely well positioned to be able to hammer that home, and not at a time that's right before a levy. So I'm curious, 3 minutes left, just under, what do people think about maybe ways we could try to, as a group, as a district, I guess, share that, like what, and maybe it's in our classrooms too, like what are the implications, what are the reasons, and how does that show up in your life? Yes.
I have a suggestion in addressing some of that, and I think I brought this up before, is that we need to have a stronger communication alliance with our city council, because I don't think it is clearly understood at that level how important that we have diverse housing for all of our community, not just one end of the spectrum. And as you can see, and I wonder if it is time for us as a school board directors to write a letter to the council and stating these concerns and have them hear it from all of us. Because, I mean, the fact that we can't get bus drivers to get our kids to school, that's a problem. The fact that we don't have, I mean, we lose teachers every year because they're exhausted from driving hours every day to get here, and when they could just work closer to home. Because majority of them don't live here. I mean, think about it, those who live here are those who are lucky enough because they have to snag a home before the market went crazy, or they have a spouse or family who lives here, and so they could reside here. Otherwise, they don't. And it's continuing in a pathway that it's preventing our school district to function healthily. And honestly, if you think about the policy discussion we had years ago around changing start time, that was severely impacted by teachers not living in the district. So it's not just their work, but it's also the governance space it impacts. So I think it's time for us to be a little bit more proactive and voice out as a board and let the council understand it's their decision impacts.
If an idea, just because we still have 30 seconds, if you draft something and then you bring it to our Monday meeting, then we could have a discussion on the wording and whatever, and then we could bring it either that Thursday or depending on how the discussion goes, or the next Thursday meeting. So it's an idea. I saw Vice President Shui's hands up, but then we should go to you, Director Chu. You're done. Okay, go ahead.
Just a 10-second thing. We could consider putting that as an item on our legislative agenda for the year. There are plenty of legislators who are also working on that problem, and if we want to raise up its visibility, we could do that.
So it sounds like you guys are saying both tracks, right? Or
Sorry, I know we're over time. I just want to double down on that. I love this idea of kind of the bigger idea of staff well-being. So you kind of brought that up, Christine, but like, I think looking at staff well-being and how do we take care of our people, and part of it has the direct connection to just recruiting and retaining people, but like what are the policies that impact them that we can use to support them, and then affordable housing. Because I'll say I met one bus driver who the commute is an hour both ways from her home, so she has to get here early to get the first group of kids, but then she's got 2 hours in the middle of the day and she can't go home. And then she works the late to drop off kids, and then an hour back home. So there aren't a lot of people who love that schedule, and so to be able to recruit bus drivers, if you don't have affordable housing, then you're literally relying on people who are willing to have that kind of lifestyle. And then I'll just mention in the research that we've done with Amazon and Microsoft, in our teachers who have 0 to 5 years of experience in Bellevue, almost none of them live in Bellevue, almost none of them. So the majority of the ones who live in Bellevue are the ones who are closer to retirement. So it's not as much of a problem as it is going to be in the next 5 or 10 years. And so we are working on this on the district side. We've got a couple of ideas that are in the pipeline, but I think a more concerted, proactive effort, and maybe this is something that we unfold into our strategic planning around well-being, would be awesome. And I think partnership with the city would be great. Thanks for bringing that up.
okay, great. We are going to stand in recess and convene an executive session for which I will read the purpose in a second, and then we will come back at approximately 6:40 p.m. to adjourn the meeting. So at this point, following a very short recess, the board will at 6:30 p.m. go into an executive session to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment or to review the performance of a public employee. So we will stand in recess with the board starting executive session at 6:30 p.m. promptly, and then I'll come back at 6:40 to adjourn. Thank you. Okay, the time is 6:55 p.m. and our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.